Hi, babe.
Hi.
We have a very special guest today.
We do.
Now, I am very, very excited. We have Vinnie Potestivo joining us today. For those of you who don't know, Vinnie is an Emmy Award-winning media brand advisor, personal brand strategist, and content coach. He's also the creator of I Have a Podcast and host of I Have a Podcast on TV. He's kind of the brains and the inspiration behind the empowerment of a lot of our favorite people.
Mm.
Um, he's worked with people like Ashton Kutcher, Daniel Fishel, who I love. I will always remember as Miss Topanga, and your sister, Nomi Moore, your sister Mandy Moore. You guys are related, right?
By marriage. By
Yeah,
marriage.
yeah. I thought so. The name sounded familiar. Also, Vinny is co-founder of MTV's Talent Development and Original Programming Development,
Oh, that's
which
exciting.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That means he went on to innovate and impact this new genre of television that we all love now. These original series like The Osbournes, Newlyweds, Punked, Ashley Simpson Show. I remember watching that. Laguna Beach, The Hills, and Man and Wife. And now he's here talking to Mr. and Mrs. Mr. Vinnie Potestivo. Hi,
Welcome.
Hi, babes.
Hello.
How are
you?
you?
Doing
Great,
well.
thank you. You just mentioned some of my favorite people in this entire world. So I'm ear to ear. My face already hurts. I'm ear to ear grinning.
Good. We like that.
Yeah, it's seeing that and realizing that you have the connection with so many people that I love and that I have such a connection with as a fan makes me really happy too. So
Oh, thanks. By the way, that's how I felt at MTV. Are you kidding?
Oh, I'm sure.
Topanga, like that's like some like life changing. I called my sister the day we met, and I said, "Nikki, you're not even gonna believe who I just got a hug from, because that's like all as a kid. That's all I wanted was a hug
Right.
from Topanga." And by the way, the funniest part about Danielle is she was dating Lance Bass back in the day, as it was.
I remember that.
Late 90s. So that's where we'll start with this story.
Mm-hmm.
She went to Snowed In. MTV used to do these like seasonal shows. She went to Snowed In with Lance. We had a dropout on something called Say What Karaoke, and she
I remember
stepped up. She was like, "Give me the Busta Rhymes song. Give me the clean lyrics. I'll even learn the clean lyrics."
Oh.
And she had such a fun,
I love her.
Snowed In moment. That moment that when it came time to cast a host for Say What Karaoke after Dave Holmes had left MTV, we were like, "Who better? Topanga,
Yeah.
let's go back. Let's go back."
That's so cool. Snowed In. That was like the winter spring break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. That's
The winter,
so great.
the winter spring break. That's exactly how we described it too, by the way.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
I'm like the one before, the one that doesn't, a spring break I always knew was coming because Girl Scout cookies usually like get delivered to our office like 2 weeks before we would go. And those cycles, MTV had Summer House, Beach House, Spring House. They had these like tentpole moments where we tried out new talent in between sort of like the larger bouts of programming. So
Totally.
all of those specials usually were the time where we were testing out new talent and seeing what would stick and what didn't ultimately.
Yeah.
And that is your specialist, right? You kind of seek out talent and then you develop talent for the audiences.
Yeah, it's like the coolest job because like I went to school for arts admin. I have a background. I wanted to be a Broadway producer. I wanted to always work with theatrically performing talent, so like actors and dancers and models. And I come from New York, so like I understood that we weren't the number one or number two industry first and foremost, finance and then fashion in New York. So working in TV, I didn't even feel like I had to be like a Broadway star, a movie star, like you needed to be in LA.
Yeah.
And to work with where television was in the 90s, that Beyonce and Ashton and that these powerful celebrities had to come through MTV for the live access. When I realized that was what MTV had different than other platforms, and because I was perched at MTV, what I would do is I would go out late night. I would be like 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. out in New York, as I'm supposed to. I meet every single artist who lands in New York just as they get here, and then they go out. And then usually the person at the club would be like, oh, this is the new artist. You have to meet Vinny. He's at MTV. And then I would meet them outside of MTV. The trick was follow the follow-up. I had access to the TRL studio. So then I could just walk down to the studio and say hi to all my new friends all the time. And they were like, how do you know all these people? Like, I'm in New York. How lucky am I? I'm social. And I loved it. And they're making me. And y'all listen to me. I was obsessed.
That's amazing. That's so
great. It
great.
didn't start off with reality TV. It was traditional casting. I was putting Beyonce in her first film, bringing Mandy Moore to TV. But my job really was structure. I was good at meeting people, taking data, putting it in an Excel spreadsheet, taking Word documents, mass producing video, learning how to burn DVDs, figuring out how to get content out quickly, and supporting the casting team at MTV. And I was lucky to learn casting from them. I had this innate skill of development and organization, digital organization. So that worked out well for me. But everything else we made up.
That's how you do it.
And then I still get paid for the people I don't know. I get paid to meet people, and I love that part about it.
That's great.
Well, and reality TV, I think, in terms of TV, also gave a next level of access to that kind of fame, resource, stardom, and it really changed the game of who can become a celebrity. And you reference where everyone in LA has to be a movie star, and so much of LA is the epicenter for TV and movie stardom. So with everybody looking to be discovered these days, ourselves included, in what is evidently an oversaturated market, how does one get discovered these days?
Oh, yeah. By the way, oversaturated so far. I mean, there's like weird numbers, 4 million podcasts. There's these weird numbers floating around, but I think 4 million in total, not active right now. And also, how many poems, how many movies, how many TV shows, how many songs? We should not.
Good point.
Let's not, like, I don't want to, zero fear mongering about the scale. How many TV how many TV networks have landed on your Apple TV in the last year? And we're complaining about a couple of little podcasts, and there's even more space for all of this. The cool thing about your question is it reminds me of how I got started at MTV, that I thought I needed to go to this 45th and Broadway and wait to be just tapped on a shoulder by a casting director, and someone else was going to have the fate of my discovery in their hands. And what I get, like, you can hear it in my voice. I get on my pulpit about this. What I love about where we're at now, especially like the whole Taylor Swift story and Kesha, and understanding how these contracts suck, and also more so for women, and then also more so for artists. And like, it's just for us to have the intellectual property. First off, you own your show. Sharon Osbourne doesn't own the Osbournes. Nick Cannon don't own Wild 'N Out. Punk'd isn't owned by, MTV owns those shows. We have the ability to create and own. That's something that didn't happen then. That to me is first and foremost where I want to start. And then where I want to land on that question of how to get discovered, you have a lot of say in it. You get to pick where you are when you get discovered, who you are, what you're talking about. You actually get a choice in saying that. We might not want our podcast, for example, on a specific podcast distributor because it aligns with other podcasts that we don't align with. And we now have a choice to pull our content away from that platform and put it to a place where it should be found and where it could be impactful. So to answer the question, what's the best way to get this? Plant your feet firm, like we're at the beach. I'll use this beach analogy a lot. Like, I feel it in my toes because there's nothing better than, like, I like warm sand because I'm from New York. It's not normal. It doesn't get everywhere for me like it does in LA. But so I like this idea of being firmly planted where I'm at, and then when you're ready to be exposed to me, when I do something where you see me, hear me, and there's exposure that happens, my job next is to give you something to share. That's where discovery happens. If you just see me doing my thing and I don't give you the opportunity to share my content or share my account or share merch or share a contact that I may give you, or share a referral, share an experience. Even the sharing is the big step here that tends to be missing from most discoverability issues. In fact, if exposure times the action of sharing equals being discovered, then exposure without action is two things: education or entertainment. And that's fine. It's okay to make people learn, but you don't tell people to learn and then you don't tell people to learn and use it at the same time. You tell people to learn and then you give them the homework. Like, master the information and then put it into use. And this is what we're able to do with discovery. So what
That's
does
a
this all
really
mean?
good point. I
Right?
think that some people really miss that step that you had just mentioned, which is like doing the work that's required, not just sitting back and saying, I deserve to be discovered.
Yeah. Or when I'm discovered. How about this? When you're discovered, is everything, when you get called, I learned this in church, like if you get called, you better be prepared to walk east, because that's what that message is, build an ark. Like that. That's the message. That's external. That's me waiting for external impact to make a decision. If I have the ability to listen to that internal voice, right? If I lean into what I feel like is my gut, my strength, my power, that a qualified eyeball will see what makes me me. And I'd rather a qualified eyeball than, I think in the beginning part of my career, I really wanted to be understood. I identified as ADHD and all my sexuality, all the things that I had to lie about in my teens in the 90s that are now, not to say fully accepted, but a lot easier to say. And there's some protections that are involved there. But what I didn't want to do is lie. I didn't want to lie about who I was or what I was doing. That just helped me. That just helped me really stay true. And my last name, when I left MTV, I put my last name on my production company. And it's weird to say this because my grandmother obviously got it from my grandfather, but my grandma gave me that last name, and a lot of me is tied to that last name. And there's a level of pride that I wasn't in TV. There's this thing, LMNO, leave my name off. Like, I'll do the work, I'll get paid, but leave my name off the credit. No, not
anymore.
You don't get. Yeah, you don't get this if if you want that.
Well, you're working for it. You deserve to have that.
So I hear a lot in your conversation about self-identity being a huge part of being discovered.
Yeah.
But what I also see is, whether this is true or not, a perception that social media is the new Schwab's drugs. You are going to get discovered on social media. However, there's a level of exposable competition on social media that is so gross and misperceived that I'm wondering how many people are chasing this discoverability in a hamster wheel because they're chasing something without knowing what their identity is. So how can you sell something if you don't really know what you're selling? And in reality TV, everybody is selling themselves, aren't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, so in the version of reality TV that everyone has seen, there's a lot of development to get there, and there certainly is a presenting version of an identity. The reality TV is what reality TV is interesting to me. I realized is in the production of reality TV, where you think life changes, where you think the reality changes, is like when we're recording, when you make all these when Teresa flips the table, all these like moments in life that we hold on to for one reason or another.
That was your doing, wasn't it?
No, I came in season 2, but I don't know. It is what it is. It put the franchise on the map. It got,
for sure,
Housewives of Jersey helped the Housewives of New York make Housewives of OC, the giant star.
Right.
I know that trick because Jessica Simpson did that to us with Punk'd and with the Osbournes. Punk'd and Osbournes was doing well. Osbournes came out. We won the second year that Emmys ever existed for unscripted programming. Osbournes came out, and we won that one year, and then never again beyond that. even though the challenge hasn't won anything yet. And I cast TJ Lavin. I'll put that out there, a little shade. But what you bring up is brilliant. A lot of people will ask if they can fix something on the end. Repurpose is like we're sort of fed. And I'm like, pre-purpose, like do the work. If you do the work up front, if it's more fun to make, it's going to be more fun to watch. Yeah, I promise you. It's just that's the alchemy of how these projects, work. When someone is caught up in using social media or reality TV as a tool to better understand themselves, and maybe that with me may have happened in the earlier part of my career, but I learned not to go in that direction for a couple of reasons. One, because I need follow through. So as much as I would love to help people figure themselves out on television, I need you to change. I mean, like, I've got 30 minutes to get this right. If by the end of this conversation, they don't think that we should have more rights and we haven't pushed the needle a little bit further on that network, which is why I said yes to it, then I didn't do my job. Even if that network was Oxygen, even super liberal, Oxygen, Bravo, I can go down a list of why I said yes to certain shows, but it was always because I saw an opportunity on that network to change something. What MTV did right, I think, in like the late 90s, early 2000s with reality TV was they were a network built on artists creating content for them. Music videos didn't exist until MTV existed. It's not like Chicken or the Horse. Maybe they did, but it wasn't. They were maybe films, short films, maybe they were called. I don't know. I don't want to be rude. But the platform came first, and then the need for content. We can relate to that in social media. I'll come back to that later, though. Like that's like literally our lives, right?
Yeah.
And what MTV did in the late 90s was say, we've been giving labels a couple of $1,000s, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they trickle it down to the artists who then take their 4-minute song, create, videos for it. Up until the mid 90s, MTV was the only platform for music videos. So we fared well because we didn't get scooped by other platforms like AOL Music and other places that then needed videos.
Right.
But what MTV did that was genius was say, well, then let's just give them 30 minutes. If Jessica's got 5 3-minute songs and that's 15 minutes and there's 23 minutes of content, and let's give them 30 minutes. Let's see what that gives us. And more so, let's give them the cameras. Like, let's just give it to them. Like, let's work in cooperation with them. Those shows that Osbourne's, Newlyweds, Punk, those were produced by MTV. Like, in a weird way, we were the production company on those shows at that point. Now that's not the case in television. And many of those people have launched their own production companies since then. That's like a really unique structure for a creative, enterprise and ability to share your story. So getting to be a part of that and change lives while I'm doing it. Well, and mine's one of them. Right? Sign me up, man.
Yeah.
You had said something, Vinny, that really stuck with me. It's leaning into yourself, like leaning into who you are, who your voice is. And Nomi and I were talking about that yesterday. Like, we were really leaning into what's the point of our podcast? What are we trying to do? Originally it was like, hey, we got something to say, let's say it. And now
this is what grinds my gears kind of show.
Right. And now we're learning, and this is episode 51 that we're recording right now with you. Yeah. And we're finding that our more impassioned, excitable, intentional episodes, not just like the fluffy stuff that's kind of fun sometimes, but those episodes where either Nomi and I have something really important to say that we feel like is worthwhile to get out there.
Housewives.
Housewives. We do talk about housewives quite a bit. Well, how can you not?
Well, and I also have a backstory that I'll get into with the whole reality TV thing too.
Yeah. But that sticks with me. I like that resonance of like lean into what you're doing. And that helps to, I think, realistically drive the brand, where I think some people either on social media or on YouTube maybe don't know what it is that they're leaning into. They just know that they want to be famous. I want to be a YouTuber when I grow up. I want to be a star.
But what do you want to be a YouTuber for? It's like showing up to the airport at the ticket counter and saying, I want to go on vacation, but I don't know where to go. Well, they can't book you the flight if you don't know where you want to go. Like, you have to help people help you.
Yeah.
And my experience with reality TV, working as a colorist in Los Angeles, I was hired and then a part of the Blowout show with Jonathan Anton, which was one of the first reality TV shows on Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into that experience thinking this is an opportunity for me to showcase my skills and my talents, to drive business and to drive curiosity into my business. And what ended up happening is I ended up getting most of my content cut out of the episode because it wasn't dramatic. And the people that got a lot of airtime were actually the ones who were recreating scenarios and putting more drama into it. And it became such a butchered experience for me that I pieced out because it wasn't at that time what I thought I needed. Now, 20 years later, almost, I do have that ability to lean into my identity. And I do have the ability to understand that it's not necessarily about the personal brand, it's about the personal goal. And there is a difference. And social media and reality TV, I think, create the illusion that identity is branding, and I don't think it's always that way. What are your thoughts on that? Because the whole thing now is just so produced and convoluted to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the difference between now and then is now you would just say no.
Right.
Like, no, I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing this. So now what, right? Because we don't need to, right? 2004, when your show came out, ultimately you needed to go through a television. 2004 is when your show came out, I think. Yeah.
It was 4 through 6. We had 3
6.
seasons.
Okay. So here's what's happening in reality. This is gross, me being gross and like sort of making a lot of generalizations. What's happening in 2004 is, well, first and foremost, the doors are open. So now there's a lot more people who want to be producers. Everyone's rushing to get a production company. Everyone's rushing to get a deal. When you rush, you skip over things. You skip over the most important details. It's like looking at a map and seeing that we're on Earth, but not saying let's land on the land part and not on the water part. Like, you know what I mean? Like literally, like, we could have been a little bit more specific on this one. So what ends up happening is low hanging fruit. What ends up happening is the producers need to send something to Bravo. 2004 was 2004 was already Housewives, right? No, one housewife. Maybe Paula
Orange
Abdul.
County, I think.
Yeah, Orange County and Paula Abdul had a reality show, I think, back then, if you think about it.
And and Anna Nicole.
Right. So they were beauty adjacent, and they were figuring out. They were, right?
Oh, sorry. Blowout was one of the first on Bravo, and one of those, I think, first tier shows that were starting. If they weren't setting the tone, they were setting up the opportunity for producers to come in and create something more marketable.
Yeah. And what was the E show about? Fitness? Was there an E show on fitness?
Oh, it was Bravo, and it was Jackie Warner.
Oh, it was Bravo.
And she came into the salon and had her hair cut, filmed, so that they could have producers had a segue, because that was when they would take the existing show and they would run you right into the brand new show, like when
was that
Beverly
Workout?
Hills? Yeah, Workout. When Beverly Hills went into Vanderpump Rules.
Oh yeah.
But I got distracted because there was that guy, Greg Plitt, who was on Workout, who was tragically killed by a train. He was filming something for social media on the train tracks, and something happened and he lost his footing and was hit by the train.
That's horrible.
So again, you have these people that are doing... Okay, so maybe it's a thinning the herd issue, but you have people that are being set up to take these chances, because I feel like you have this gaggle of very greedy producers that are looking for that thing that's going to skyrocket their career. And then you have all of these, dare I say, minions who are willing to do anything to get that fame. But
yes, I'm giving you all checks so far. Yes.
Thank you. But if that's what we're chasing, like, then what really, where is the foundation? And by that, I mean, I am honest. I love the idea of being famous. I liked being on a TV show, going to Disneyland and being recognized, because I could turn around and shake that person's hand and give them something that so many of us want when we're in that position. But again, I was trying to come from a place of integrity, and integrity isn't always what sells. So there was a bit, in that genre, right? I think, and I watch it myself. I look at the Housewives, for example, and I'm like, come on, this is such an antiquated notion of what people should aspire to. And the whole Kardashian business really just, I'm so upset. I'm
Yeah.
upset because I
So
feel like
upset at us, upset at them, like
no,
all of it, right?
well, I mean, you
Us,
can't
the
blame
people,
the
not even
Kardashians.
production.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's the whole
Yeah.
thing. I mean, the Kardashians are partly to blame because they put out this very inorganic content and they get praised for it. The people are to blame because they blindly follow like lemmings and they create this culture that's a vacuum in and of itself. And I'm desperately trying to escape that vacuum while validating a space for myself. And it's very difficult. And you had mentioned something earlier about, contracts. And yeah, and my 2004 contract was a
Yeah.
2-page contract. I went out for Drag Race because I was told if you're a drag queen, and this is by my agent at CAA, you're not going to get work through me until I can have that on your resume, because that's all people who are hiring drag queens are interested in. So we go to Wow Productions, and it is a 37-page contract with a 7-year non-compete. They have the right, they serve as my management and representation for the first 12 months. Then they get to choose after that if they want to continue to be my representation and management. It's like, why would I sever a relationship?
Wait, they can assign you to a specific person, and I like him, by the way. He's a friend of mine here in New York. I don't want to say names, and he means well, and he does do well with it. But there's a weird that funnel to me is fugazi. That's the word.
It didn't, yeah.
That's
Well,
the
what it
word
does
that I
is
land on that.
it negates everything that I would be going on the show to get exposure for. And that, to me, that's the part that I'm having a problem with. That's the
Yeah.
part that seems unfair. And it's like, RuPaul, production company, whatever, like, how dare they get their platform and then try to lock the door for everyone else that's coming in behind them, when the people that are coming up are the people creating the content that supports the freaking platform in the first place.
Wait, so I fully hear you. So because I have worked with World of Wonder WoW before, and Fenton and the people over there. So I want to speak to that as personally as I can. And there are some like gross generalizations that we can sort of make. That show's a hit series. It wins awards, and now that show on VH1. I don't know. Did you audition for based on the length of contract? I'm led to believe that you applied when they were already on VH1, more so when they okay.
Well, I applied twice.
Okay, and you saw the difference. You saw the difference in the process.
I got the contract twice, and I did see a big. The first time I was like, "Whoa," but maybe the second time I was like, "No." And I even gave it to. I mean, not to get too about me, but I even gave it to my lawyer, and she's like, "This is the most onerous contract I have ever read."
Ask Kelly Clarkson about the AI, about American Idol contract. I remember the conversations. It's weird to say that. And like day one, I remember having this conversation with her about it. I think so about the commercial viability of drag queens. I think unfortunately a lot of commercial businesses pick up on certain media properties and will pounce on them. I know that Legendary did amazing things for some of the performers in that group. I know that obviously RuPaul's has done, but what it does is it sends a signal, because those shows are advertising driven pieces of media. There are advertisers that are sponsoring each of those commercial breaks. So what happens is businesses look at all of those advertisers and they say, well, this is advertisable content. And not only is it advertisable content that we're able to sell merch, we're able to sell our shit off the show. Some of these people actually can help. And it's horrible, the appropriation that ends up happening. And certainly our phones ring off the hook in June and July, and it's like literally my face gets red. I'm like, just call me in April. Just see that we're like 4 months ahead, and just try to pretend that you're not making me, your to-do list for Gay Pride Month or whatever it is. So there's a weird signal that happens, with finances to larger companies that trigger that. That being said, what you two are doing by creating your own space, look, I hate to say your own reality, but your own facts are facts.
I've been doing that for a while.
Well, we all do. I learned that the hard way, But when that's what I was saying earlier with the Osbournes, we can do all. But when thousands of people watch it, when millions of people are exposed to it, that's that's when reality changes. And we've
I
seen
think
it happen for reality stars, right? For 20 years. And we're primed as podcasters to be the stars of our own vehicles. So when it's our time, and right now we're in the creator economy. You know, we went celebrities, real people, experts, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, creators. I think we're going to hit editors and curators. Like, to me, the editor is, like, aside from God, what's another name you know from the Bible? King James, because he's the guy who edited it. So I know that editing is important for storytelling, but I also think as storytellers, we're like focusing on our own myopic stories. By the way, those are not the stories that are shared. Those are not. That's not a legacy play there. Fairy tales are shared. Folklore. Like, we have to take these stories and take them to the nth degree to have them have the impact we do. And podcasting is one of the ways I think people have, especially when podcasting can be distributed through broadcast media. So you know how, like, we have local TV and we get our local news, and we know that, like, in New York, only people. Imagine if I can record, or if I can save my favorite podcast next to my favorite network and have them have nothing to do with each other. But when I could put podcasting on TV, which to me is like old school MTV, like, you can watch it to see what's on TV, but you don't have to be in the room to know what's happening. Podcasting to me feels that way. And also because of how podcasting works, you don't have to be connected to a stream. It's downloadable. Like, it's a very different file. And so that being said, the vehicle that you've created is genius. And I would lean in, and I love this. Someone told me to lean into me. For years, I had to cut my voice out of casting tapes. I cut the me out of everything. I put it into you, and I cut it out of me. So this is, now I get to show up as me. For me, leaning in means my accent is back. My wrist is doing what I want it to do. I don't even care about what I'm looking like anymore, because I got the right foundation on. I feel strong. I trust you as a collaborator. That's all I want. I didn't have any of those feelings in TV. And that's why I'm not doing TV the way I used to. And that's why I'm really focused on us creating this economy of content, because this is something where you have 3 ads that I can put, maybe. So maybe we can do an ad swap, and maybe we can grow our audience together. Maybe there's as a friend of yours, maybe there's something that's really a time of year that's so important to you, where you make 90% of your income, that by me having an ad on my simple little podcast that hits a couple of thousand people per week is going to have an impact. And you don't have to go through, like, TV and get approval from, like, the same looking people that have been there forever and get them to understand your story. And then, approve. No more understanding. It's very tiring to try to get everyone to understand what I'm doing. Just participate. Just be in it.
Didn't you just say that yesterday?
I'm so empathetic to that sentiment.
Are you?
Well, and I also feel like I like everything that you're saying, because I feel like it's a way to turn the current and promote the individual again. And I think that I may suffer from an idealistic expectation of the world. Like, all of the things that we are fed as children about what's important in developing a moral compass when you are a part of a greater good. I have taken that with me, and as an adult have been disappointed time and time again. So to me, when I read the RuPaul contract, I'm looking at 20 years that I have built this character, that they get to reap the rewards at the end of that journey, of that building journey. And they are stripping me of that autonomy that took me 25 years to build. And they're also raiding my intellectual property. And that's where I get really upset, because we can be collaborators. But when I hear stories that, somebody made $3 million and was paid 300,000 of that $3 million, that to me is an injustice. And this is where the idealistic part comes in. RuPaul is putting out this message, but what's actually happening in the execution of that message is ironically the direct opposite of what she's preaching. And that's where my idealistic sense comes in, because I'm like, no, you can't do that. It's reality TV. Wrong. It's unscripted television.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I just don't want to play a part that I know isn't going to do my career well.
yeah. Yeah, there's with let me say, with the owners, the World of Wonder owners are pretty amazing. What they did, how they got this show on air, by the way, let alone to be the hit that it is just a testament to knowing how to get us in the door. And I think, unfortunately, and I think hopefully Fenton, hopefully Brandy and Fenton and the guys at WoW would agree with this. Ultimately, they wish it could be different. They wish that it didn't have to have some of the protections to protect us. Some of the reasons, I'm guessing here, some of the reasons why they need ownership over certain things is that so someone else doesn't, and there's a slight level of protection. And I will say this, as scary as those deals are, and I know lots of people who've been on that show, on judges and participants, people matter the most. It's all about networking. It's about who we are and how we work together. Those guys will develop additional shows and will really truly try to support you, but it's still in this current industry. And that's where I'm like, I don't wanna. I don't wanna. And I don't need to. And by the way, you asked how to stand out. Here's your answer. Pinterest TV. It launches November 8th.
Oh, interesting.
Christian Siriano launches his series there, and then for the first week, and then it opens up. I'll send you Pinterest just created something called Shuffles, which allows you to take pins and collage. So you're able to multi-source pins and create these cool collages. People are using them on Instagram right now as video. It's invite only, so I'll send you this like invite link so you have it, and then you can invite people too. I like invite only platforms when I'm allowed to invite people because, I am all about getting us in the door. Like I always have been about the door is open. Here's my code. And I know at MTV, I had to go find, when Tyrese left, I had to find that the new head of the new faces for direct effect, hip hop and art. Music that I didn't grow up listening to and I'm not the expert of. But I had to find, that was my job, was to find Lala and DJ Clue and the people that ultimately we put into place there. I called up Hot 97, Power 105. I called up the experts. I said, I'm the guy in MTV. First off, I'm the guy in MTV. I don't know if you know anyone here, but if you need TRL tickets, I'm your guy. You want to meet Carson Daly. He said, anything I can do to open up MTV's doors to you, that's what I can do for you. A lot of those people became producers, production companies, and did millions of dollars in business with MTV. And all because I didn't want to be the person to pick who should be in these culturally important roles. But instead, I used it as an opportunity to network, meet some really cool, and meet the Ravens and Mavericks and people who will connect me to these people. And I trusted them. And that trust with people has helped. That being said, I didn't trust, I didn't have I was this close to being on TV my whole entire life. I didn't jump. I didn't take that leap. Two reasons. One, I saw Mandy Moore and I saw how some people didn't love the idea that the public can have so many different types of opinions about them. I mean, imagine a guy, you know, what it's like to be in your 90s.
Yeah.
Sexuality back then. Like, you think I'm going to be, I've learned to be an acceptable version of me. Right. Now, when you say lean into me, that's like de-learn, I changed the spelling of my name, Vinnie with an IE, because if it ends with E, it's feminine in French and Italian. So I needed to be Vinnie with an IE because my dad was Vinnie with the Y. And I made that change so I could have like a handshake deal with myself. So I was like, okay, we're accepting who we are, but it's a wink to anyone out there who understands what I'm trying to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Otherwise, you'll just be like, oh, you spell your name different. And I'm like, yeah. And I don't need to explain myself to you. That's where I was getting at.
So Robert and I have had a couple podcasts where we've talked about the drag race culture, and we've talked about RuPaul's position in drag race culture. And I think that the show Drag Race is not separate from any other entity that's in mainstream. It is a business in and of itself.
Yeah.
So, having my own experience is the only thing that I have to draw from. But through that experience, I've even said RuPaul is a beacon for the drag community. And I can't think of somebody better to carry that beacon for us. So my question then is, if somebody finds themselves in a position like me, and they want to try out for something because they want the exposure. How do you encourage somebody to lean into themselves and not be intimidated by this 37-page contract or
Yes.
whatever it is with any other company that would deter them from leaning into themselves and following their path?
The answer is to make, right now in this scenario, your goal is to make exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, let's make the goal beyond it. What happens with exposure?
Well, more opportunity, more doors open with exposure, right?
And and what happens? What are those opportunities bring, or what do you bring to those opportunities? Like, what's the larger? So you having more exposure will get more people to see you, and then what do you want to have happen?
Well, that's when the opportunities, the offers, hey, we saw you. Well, for me personally,
to inspire them.
I want the opportunity to reach that level in the fashion industry so that I am on the Paris runways, not just the LA runways.
Yes.
I want something that will last longer than social media, longer than RuPaul's Drag Race, which I hope they last a very long time because we tune in religiously every season and we love the content. I just forgot my train of thought.
You know what you do, by the way?
What's that?
You go on Top Model. You say, you know what, Ru? If your goal is to change fashion, that's why I wanted to ask you the goal. And there's there's a couple of ways I can do this. I'm kind of shortcutting something here. Sure. Oftentimes they'll ask, there's a 7 layers. So if I were to ask you, why is that important? Why is that important? Ultimately, if I ask you 7 times down is the number, that we get to like what you're really truly trying to do to impact people. So if impacting fashion, if getting your body type, getting your likeness, your fabrics, I don't know what part it is that you can change, but I could tell you this: the RuPaul's Drag Race will help get you there, but it's what happens after. It's the movie you book after being on Ru that's going to get you to that level where Anna is like, we have to have her on our carpet now, and like she is the new Kim. And like
the thing that scares me though in a situation like this, in a situation like this, is that opportunity comes knocking on my door and Wow says, no, we can't have you do that because we need you to do this because we're going to make more money if you do this. But that's not my goal, and I don't want to be strong-armed by anybody. So I think that like what you just gave me, I mean, I thought of that before, but hearing somebody else in your position say, well, do Top Model. Who cares if it's really just traditionally been biological women? Do Top Model. It's a wonderful, wonderful workaround to a counterproductive perception of one limited piece of the bigger picture. And I love that. So if we were to broaden that to listeners who are not interested in my own pursuits, how do we give them that same message? How do we figure out, without having a conversation with these people who are listening, to bypass that?
Yeah, bring your goal on the journey. It's so weird to say, and I don't mean to. Bring your goal. First off, the goal, I hate to say the journey is the goal because results and impact often are. But bring the goal on the journey. You are phenomenal and awesome. And do you type into one specific show that specifically has figured out what it's looking for? Yeah, but also like, I don't know how to say this, but like if you found out someone liked a certain type of, if they don't, I don't know. It's almost like fetishing. It's like media fetishing, where it's like, this is acceptable and we can, and this is what we want and this is desirable, but this is the form that it comes in. You know what? In fact, I even take it back. Don't do runway. Do Making It, that cute show with Amy Poehler, where there's like they make cute. You would stand out. Imagine the structure and just the presence that you would have on a format that is unsuspecting. That's
smart.
I bring up Top
I want to take
Model.
a moment, and I just want to say, I think it's really smart, because learning how to see a situation in a way that allows you to choose for yourself I think, of the utmost importance when you are, as you say, leaning into yourself. I just want to take a moment there for that.
No, I thank you for that. Hey, let's use their words for a second too. If RuPaul's is award-winning and everyone likes it, and that's like the thing, cool. Now we know the media likes it. Right. Why you don't now go stand out on another network? Now that Wow and RuPaul and Logo did all that work in education for it to get to the point where we can get to VH1.
And that's important.
so much so. And uh, I hired Kim Stoltz. Kim Stoltz. I don't know if you know. She was a model on America's Next Top Model. I think she was the Carrie D English season, if I
Oh,
remember
okay.
correctly back then. And Kim stood out because she was the first out lesbian in the history of that show. And I hired her as I didn't hire her. MTV hired her as a news correspondent for MTV News. So you would say, why would I possibly be watching a fashion programming show to find? I was looking for someone who was culturally relevant, who first off used my words and would fight for me in a room when like no one else is in that room. And I'm like, I'm looking for an ally and beyond just someone. And also like what do you do? Kim, you're so not the normal model, and everything about it, which made her successful in that track, is what I was looking for ultimately in a news correspondent. Someone who knew how to blend in and stand out. Someone knew how to stand up to stand out. And if she was on, there wasn't the real L word or anything like that back then, but if that was the show and she was introduced as a lesbian and the story and character were told in a different way, maybe I wouldn't have been as successful to do what I did, on such a mainstream network at a point in time. I got to be honest, at a point, and my voice drops when I say this. I don't like saying this, but there was a couple of people who identify as LGBTQ that were at that network then that didn't identify publicly. And they were talent, and I had a really hard time with some of those people because I was like, don't you just is Danny from the real world literally all I got to work with when it comes to like us?
Totally.
Like literally it's me and him, and I don't even, Shane came down the line later down the line. Dan from Miami didn't really love Miami too much. I just wanted us.
Yeah.
And I was able to find it on a fashion show, and she was the one who knew everything. And by the way, she stood out because she knew what she was talking about. She knew music. She was smart. You don't get to you don't get to show that side of you in some formats. They don't even come close to letting you tap into that genius. So I would say this. Now that you know that a certain, it's like in movies, by the way. Filthy Rich, is it Filthy Rich Asians or Dirty Rich Asians? Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
This movie sent a signal to every single network that this is a viable cast, needs to go. Every single network. I said yes to one of them and went specifically looking for projects like this. And ultimately, Netflix landed on Bling Empire. And literally as a result of data saying this works, networks and advertisers are comfortable and audiences are comfortable with these people as our leads. Now let's move on it quickly. And if it can happen on this vertical, it can now happen on other verticals. 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. What happens on VH1 stays on VH1.
Right.
What happens on Bravo
Interesting.
stays on Bravo.
Yeah.
They don't really, because it's about retention. It's not about growth. It's about.
And I do want to say too
money.
that I think that RuPaul's Drag Race, outside of the scope of drag, has been instrumental in getting people to drop their guards down. And Robert, I love my sayings. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. No one's 100% innocent. No one's 100% guilty. There's always good to be found if your perception can be adjusted to look for those things. Like Robert says all the time, focus on what you want. Don't focus on what you don't want. That's, to me, is the true law of attraction, because then all of your energy and resources are into positive outcomes. You have to be aware of when you might be in danger of like kind of cutting yourself off at the pass, which is a big fear of mine, which is why I probably overreact to the words in the contract, because I'm like, no, I fought my entire life for my autonomy. I don't want to give it away. But then it's not the only game in town, and it's not the only perception. And what you say about finding a platform where you stand out, not where you blend in, because that's how you get exposure. And that's how I think you just said a moment ago, people find you viable that way.
Yeah, I think that we inherently just have more choices. And I think the more choices we have now, we have more control. We have more control over what we say yes or no to. And we also have more control when we find ways to collaborate with people that allow us to have resonance, to build audiences that get our message out there, where we don't need to gamify or, jump through hoops just to get our message out there. I think some of the fun there's obviously artistry that is a part of the allure of that show, is the artistry and the creation of a character. I would love, and so much of it, to be honest, kind of like Shark Tank, is the creation of, right? We're making a business, we're making a character. What about being?
Mm-hmm.
What about living? Even shows on A&E about addiction. It's like they end at rehab. By the way, what person in your life do you know who's been through rehab where that was the ending of the story? Like that's not even close. And when they come out, is so this beginning, this whole fascination about the beginning part of our conversation. There's so much risk, right? So much risk and reward, and creating something we don't know what it, but we don't have to let other platforms, other producers, and other entities help in any way establish the value of our content anymore. And in some ways, what about when there's a podcast? By the way, what about when there's a podcaster only version to RuPaul's Drag Race? Or what if when they figure out how to turn Ru into a podcast version of the show that isn't quite exactly that version? The first thing they'll do is look, and I mean the casting team. Like the first thing that they'll do is go and look first awards. They're going to look at who's winning awards, who's being loud. I mean, we're our community is used to getting rewarded for being loud. and we've learned how to be loud without a single chirp to our voice too. So like that is again us figuring out how to be us without someone else telling us how to be us. So you think of the earlier reality TV people, and now I understand, by the way, I was saying earlier at MTV where I had a hard time because certain people, I don't want to say wouldn't come out, but didn't want to publicly be identified. We had no rights. We all could have I was told by a colleague not to talk about my sexuality at MTV because I could get fired because there's no, and not that I did anything wrong or right, but that's just
there's no protection.
The rule of the land. Yeah. So what do? You learn to not bring it up. And then you learn to not want to be in that conversation because I can't be the one who speaks up. And then I don't even want to be in that conversation anymore. Like that, there's like, that's why I say like, lean into you, see how we are successful in other scenarios and bring that the other people's experiences into our reality. And that, I don't know how to say it other than like that literally is how I was able to change my own reality. Because it's mindset. It's how I see things too. It's not just like what I'm doing, it's how I'm perceiving what I'm doing.
And ultimately, don't you think that most people are on that same journey when they're pursuing that?
Yes, I think that well,
we are wanting to
on
find
that journey.
Ourselves.
Yeah, they're either the beginning, middle, end. They're either hoping to build something. There's this weird, I don't know what's going on in the world. Everyone's talking about legacy as if it's like something tangible, like and also like as if it's like money involved. Like this is my legacy, this is my money, and I'm like, maybe I grew up like. I grew up on food stamps and not rich, and I wasn't taught about I'm sorry, but I've been working on my legacy ever since I was like 4. What do you mean? Like every word that comes out of my mouth is meant for you to be to change you so that we can live in a more cooperative world. Like so this idea of like rushing to make my legacy, I'm like, no, that's like long. That track is long and burned into this earth.
I wonder if, because I feel this is a big part of me wanting fame and feeling comfortable with it, is as a gay man with no children, there's no other legacy in except for what I can produce. And I have a joke where I say I'm my own hobby. And I am. I'm trying to think. I just lost my train of thought again.
Well, when did you come up with that phrase? I'm curious. Like how young?
Recently. Just recently, because it's the luxury of being able to choose without having to think of somebody else like a child. Yeah. I'm just forgetting how that was relating to what you were
Yeah,
just
but also
saying.
with when you say something, when we compare hobbies to children, there's almost like one layer removed of responsibility. So maybe you calling yourself a hobby instead of a business or your own child or your own whatever is, and by calling it a hobby says like, if I fail, I'm not. It leaves room for failure versus like, don't fail. This is you. This is
What?
this is not a hobby. This is
Yes. No.
literally you.
What I
No
mean,
one is doing.
what I mean by that is that I have the luxury to make myself like the way like what I do for work. I think I feel about that in the way that most people feel about their hobbies because I
Got
can
you.
put 100% of my energy and resources into it without having to be distracted by other responsibilities.
Yes.
So for me, without having any children, without legacy, um, that fame for me is a way to know that when my tree falls in the woods, it's going to be heard because I need that now because I'm not passing anything on down once I leave this earth.
But like genetically?
Genetically, I'm not interested
But
in
like
having children.
energy wise?
Well, energy wise, but why can't I reap the benefits of that energy while I'm still here? And that's what I see
Absolutely.
fame doing
Absolutely.
for me.
Maybe that's
Yeah,
what-
yeah.
And when you also too, I think fame allows the opportunity that when one speaks, people that normally wouldn't listen because everyone I think secretly wants a piece of fame or they want to be adjacent to fame. So for someone that had my autonomy and my voice robbed as a child and as a young adult,
Yeah.
I am searching for that platform that says, you know what? They did whatever they needed to do to get to this platform. I'm going to listen to what they have to say because I recognize that struggle.
Yeah. I would love that to happen. I hope that happens. I hope the audience is aware of that. I hope that there's the aha moment where a platform can somehow bring that level of clarity, or cooperation,
Yes.
so to speak.
We were talking about relationships and wanting to connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if anyone can do it, it's you, Vinnie.
Thanks. Oh gosh, I've heard that before, and then they throw me to Laguna and see what I come up with.
Well, I think that
tape and let us know.
It's been really enlightening to listen to you because I do think that whether the goal is a podcast, a reality TV show, fame, children, a relationship, learning who one is, and as once again you say, being able to lean into yourself is it's like showing up to the airport with a destination so that they can book your flight. And I think that perception plays a huge part of that. And today's conversation, I know for me, and I hope for our listeners, has created that perception shift, that sort of proverbial knocking the needle off the record, the scratch on the record, because I think we are our own worst enemies, and we're trained to be that way because it's less work for the other people to have to try to quiet us when we have something important to say.
Yep.
By the way, we were we specifically we were rewarded for minimizing ourselves.
Yep.
Oh, we found positive construction, positive feedback in being smaller versions of ourselves. So I can absolutely connect to that need. And I think that it's exciting that we don't have to rely on television networks anymore to build audiences, and there's real power to us.
Agreed.
I believe in us, a lot, and how we show up and where we show up matters, and like exactly what you're saying is
that's it. That's
it.
How we show up matters, and I feel like I wish that more people thought that being present and engaged was a more admirable goal than this sort of forced, vapid nature that certain people who represent a facet of our society has been deemed the top echelon of society.
By the way, that's like, if we're talking about in time, that's like so fleeting. If that's the goal, I just want to warn y'all, if that's the goal, if the goal is like, it doesn't, I don't know how to say it. Like, run, turn around.
Well, and I think too, like the most important thing that I think that certain people are definitely more sellable than others, but
Mhm.
what people relate to the most is being relatable. Like I can understand that person's journey, and I think that the trick is being able to, for lack of a better term, like give people the medicine with a spoonful of sugar so
Yeah.
that they can have the opportunity to relate rather than feeling threatened and then defensive and then once again throwing the whole baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love what you're saying. Use their words. Like they've given us words that they understand. We have to use that
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
so that we can coexist and live in that space, but also be mindful that our job is not to live in that space.
Yeah.
And that's
Well
where the
said.
goal is you, right? The goal is
Yes.
you. The project is a podcast or an episode or a TV show. But if the goal is you, if the goal is change on a fashion level, to be a theme for the next Met ball, you know what I mean, that we should be so lucky. I mean, we know it happens.
Yep.
There are a lot of ways we just saw in these last 10 years a lot of impact in the fashion community.
Yes.
And you brought up Kim, by the way, and just to go back to like it all started with that one fake quote unquote release of a tape that quote unquote wasn't supposed to be seen, quote unquote. This idea that, oops, here's my authentic self. People have been mastering that bullshit version of their authentic self forever. Podcast, like where we are going, and to be honest, where we go as a community is going to force TV networks to make characters be more, I don't even like the word relatable. Relatable tends to mean watered down, common average, and relatable to the largest group of people. How about like the people who are relatable to you? I don't even want to be relatable to people. I don't want to be the most related person in the entire
I'm
world.
all for love branding. Nomi is not for everyone, just like Hermes is not for everyone. And nor do I want to be, because I want what I have to offer to those people to remain special to the people who really care about it. And that sort of lemming culture to latch on to everything dilutes.
And if $40,000 for a bag is too expensive than you, then I don't want you carrying my shit anyway.
Kind of, and that's got to be okay though.
And
it's
that is
only the people who have told themselves that that's the goal, that they then that want and that desire then screws them up mentally. You have to be able to say, I can't afford a $40,000 bag, and that's okay.
Yeah.
What can I do? Because anybody can get a $40,000 bag if they want one. Like that's not the stuff that intimidates people, right? That's just armor.
But who wants
put
one?
On. Like lace chip. No,
well, they come in so many good colors. You can't
say. Although I do believe in, I will be honest, I have one. And I bought it 7 years ago, and it was to reward myself for reaching a marker in my career.
Jeez.
I use that bag almost every single day for the last 7 years. It is beat up. It is scuffed. It is pulled.
It is loved.
It is loved. And you can see that. And the reason why is because I know it's not going to break down on me. And I get so weirded out by these people who get so upset when they take their Louis Vuitton suitcase to Delta and it gets scuffed. That's the point.
That's like the whole thing.
And if you get upset by that, then maybe you shouldn't be wasting your money on trying to look wealthy.
I love that you. I love that you leaned into that answer, and we have two bottles of like Cristal. Not Cristal. It's like I don't even know. It's something. It's something diamondy. I don't know. I'm terrified. I closed the refrigerator door because I feel like the light's on too. And we have had it in the refrigerator for 2 years. And we got it so we can celebrate special moments. And I just felt like for the last 2 years, we just kept saying, is this the moment? No, maybe something more special.
Yeah.
Maybe. So the fact that you use your bag every single day means that every day is special. And that what an awesome headspace to be in, to accept success, to acknowledge it, and then to make it be part of the alchemy as opposed to a mile marker in your past. I love what you've done here.
And I prefer it to be a spoil rather than a declaration, right? And I do recognize the moments where something like that can be armor to someone like me, but it's important that I have what I have because it makes sense for me.
Yeah.
And it's like the other day I told Robert, it's like, we have this expensive bottle of fragrance. I don't like it. It's not mine. And I'm like, let's just get rid of it, because all it's doing is sitting on the cabinet for show right now because it's an expensive bottle of cologne, but I'm not going to use it. So why have it if it's just there for show?
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me. And if you're a collector, great. I mean, have at it. If you can have like a 300, 400 square foot closet and you can have all the Birkins lined up, please have at it. But that also shouldn't be the goal. It's like we have to be able to get to a certain spot and say, I have this, I can enjoy this. And maybe like being really out there so everybody knows it shouldn't be the goal. Just the process of putting yourself out there can be the goal, regardless of the result.
Yeah, absolutely is.
I like what you said, Vinny, about it, like making every day special. And I think that that's something that's kind of why I always say, like, focus on what you want and not what you don't want. Partly because I can only focus on one thing at a time, but also because that I found that those are my drivers. So if I have something that makes my day makes my everyday special in that way, that's what I'm going to grab to. That's what I'm going to gravitate towards. And I feel like a lot of what we talked about today, and leaning into yourself and making sure that the goal is you. It sounds like stuff you would put on a t-shirt, but I love it. And what a quick, easy driver in your mind to keep top of mind to continue day by day to make sure that those days are special.
By the way, I put it on a Post-it note and I look at them on my computer. Like I make sure that I put these words in front of me, that I don't forget these words because there's so much input, you know? And Nomi, you nailed it when you said it makes sense for me. Just because it makes sense for me doesn't mean it needs to make money for you. And if we could be more happy with what we have than how other people perceive what we have, or what we want other people to perceive exactly what you're saying, and then we're in a healthier mind space to be more authentic, show up in a more vulnerable and authentic. I hate using some of those those trigger words to me.
Sure.
Because they're certainly overused. I don't have to be authentic just because I don't have to lie. You know, just because I don't have to lie anymore. It doesn't mean that I'm naturally authentic. But that being said, we've all got our journey. We no longer have to subscribe to other people's journeys to get what we want. And television, movies utilize television in a way that just the whole way the media world is working in cooperation and discooperation with each other. None of that stuff allows us to own content the way that podcasting does. And again, I come back to that. There's something really important about owning the content that we're creating. That's these episodes are our legacy. This is digital. I'm from Staten Island. This is like that dump is not going anywhere. Like these episodes, we can take them off Apple, but they're in the ether forever.
They're printed on the Ethernet. Yeah,
I love that. Vinny, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Vinny. It has been an absolute pleasure.
It really has. Can you tell our listeners where they can best find you if they want to find more Vinny?
Yeah, thanks. VPE.tv. I have a creator circle where I invite people who are looking for 99 awards worthy of winning, or creator marketing platforms that pay, how to get your podcast on IMDb so you can get and give credit the way that most TV shows do. I even found 60 podcast directories that I felt people should be on, where I saw most websites had about 30. In the last year, I saw a huge growth in podcasting globally that I'm trying to bring to the table. So all that for free at vpe.tv. And then I work with sponsors who help offset the cost of membership. Other than that, say hi to me on LinkedIn. I'm like LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm at Vinnie Potestivo. I'm just me, no weird names. Don't use any weird credits to say hi or anything like that. Just flag me down and say what's up. I talk, I chat. That's what I do. I answer, I reply. I say yes. I do.
You mean you're actually social on social media?
Weird.
So
strange. Like, where's the media? I don't get it.
Well, Robert and I have redubbed social media sales media, because really social media is just there to make somebody else money.
Yeah. Well,
which
right
is
now
it's
centralized.
In that.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. It's a centralized platform.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram. There's one person and then a publicly traded group of people that are profitizing from that.
Yep.
But where podcasting gets me excited is in this decentralized world of media where you own the network. Now, we know we can listen to podcasts on Apple and Spotify and Google, but they don't own your podcast.
Right.
They're just simply a directory. If you want to
Yeah.
take your crap off that in a heartbeat, you have the ability to take it off that. If this was uploaded to their platform natively, then you would have a really hard time taking off, content in the way that you can.
Yeah,
So,
understood. Thank
create,
you.
get out there and create and represent and
Lean into yourself.
Lean into yourself, and also and know that the media takes hints from the box office and more so from box office cues than from Netflix, because Netflix is subscriber and algo and all that. But the box office, the movies tend to have a really big impact on shows that are greenlit and characters that are added to shows as well. So that's just one of the ways I found to help. Like, hey, did you ever see the character in this movie? I could be that for. So that helps me bring some language into a vocabulary that might not exist already.
I love
Fantastic.
It. Thanks, Vinnie. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.